So the other day I was on my way to 7-Eleven on a substance-fueled mission to pick up some Pop-Tarts when I came across these two homeless guys just banging it out in the parking lot. It was completely empty, there was no one around, and they were brawling. The best comparison I can give this fight to is it was like when Majin Vegeta fought Goku. Neither of these guys had any care for their own well-being. They were fighting for something a lot deeper than needles. It was pride that was on the line here. And to make a long story short, one of the guys went for a double leg, and the other homeless guy locked in an arm-in guillotine. And he jumps to guard, and he's on his back, and he's squeezing it for a while, and then he just goes, "Ah, man, my arms are gassed." And the one on top picks his head out and goes, "Yeah, man, have you ever seen a UFC fighter jump guard with a guillotine and finish it? Like, it just never happens. Like, the submission's useless." And the guy on bottom's like, "No, you're right, I shouldn't have done it." And they, no joke, hugged it out and went their separate ways. And the first thing I thought to myself was, that's a good video topic. I swear to God, 100% true story. But yeah, just off the top of my head, when I think about it, it's like, yeah, I feel like most of the time when someone jumps guard with a guillotine, they get out. I don't see a finish that often. And it's weird because anyone who's done Jiu Jitsu knows that when someone is a real specialist at the guillotine and they really sink it in on you all the way, there's no escape, and the choke comes on quick. Usually in sport jiu-jitsu, when the person pops their head out, it's very fast. The guy grabs it, he jumps guard, and the guy's pretty much getting his head out pretty much simultaneously as they get to the ground. But in MMA, there seems to be a lot of instances where the guy will grab the guillotine, he'll grab guard, and the person will just sit there in the choke until the person's arms get tired and he doesn't tap. Why is that? Well, I picked out some very interesting key examples to dissect to see if we can find any patterns here. Let's get into it. Example number 1, Tyron Woodley versus Stephen Thompson 1. This sequence took place in the 4th round. Woodley, he hurt Thompson really bad. Steven was on skates. Feels weird to call him Steven. Woodley gets a hold of his neck, drops to guard, and Joe Rogan loses his mind. Oh, it's tight. Oh, he's gonna tap. Well, I'll let you listen to it.
But he's still got his neck, and he drops down for the guillotine. Full in.
Is this it?
Oh, man, that is so tight. He's gonna tap. Incredible. How is he surviving here? He's reaching down. He's trying to separate the hand. This is amazing.
Unbelievable.
This is so tight and so deep. Look at Tyron squeezing and squeezing. Looks like he's got a better angle on it now. How is Wonder Boy surviving here?
But believe it or not, Thompson did not tap. Woodley held it for a while, his arms got tired, he let go, and then he ended up on bottom. Now, everyone's first inclination is probably, wow, Wonder Boy is so tough. How did he not tap to that? But, I mean, look, in a blood choke, toughness doesn't really matter because you just can't tough it out. You're going to go to sleep if the choke is actually on. So if a person's not tapping to it, the reason is the choke's not in. 99.999% of the time a fighter taps to a blood choke, it's not because they're giving up. It's because they are in the process of passing out. And Wonder Boy was not in the process of passing out. But Joe Rogan's a black belt in Jiu Jitsu. Why was he so convinced that that choke was 100% in? Well, I'm just going to chalk it up to him probably not having a very good angle on it. Either that, or he just doesn't know what he's talking about somehow. First things first, though, it's important we make this distinction. What Woodley had was an arm-in guillotine. As you see, one of his arms is around Thompson's neck, the other one is going underneath his arm. This is a lot harder to finish than when you have both arms under the neck, but the reason you see fighters go for this is because it is way easier to grab. The no arm-in guillotine, if you have it fully sunk in, is way easier to finish. and will put you to sleep a lot faster. The problem is, though, it's harder to control to get to the point where it's fully locked in. And at a high level, fighters are very ready to defend that because of the danger with it. Now, let's look at the mechanics to find out what it takes to finish an arm-in guillotine.
It's already kind of in position anyway. I make my way around. As you can see, the instinct, he's throwing the arm up. This arm has gone over. I come underneath. I'm holding his chin with my right hand. The other hand comes in to support the grip. So I have his chin with this hand, and the other hand supporting the bottom of my hand to make hand fighting difficult. When I want to finish, I'm going to go a little bit past his chin. So this part of my hand here is underneath the neck here. Okay? I'm going to make sure I have a nice pinch with my elbow, and then to finish, I'm going to check the time.
I always start off a chin strap here, and then I connect my hands over the top like this. What I want to do with this grip is scoop my hands right up.
Grabbing the chin strap and turning your wrist upwards, that is what does it, and that is what puts the choke on. The problem that everybody does that's inexperienced with this is they just grab it and they squeeze. With the arm-in guillotine, you're not going to finish it like that. Without the arm, yes. With the arm-in, though, you can't just squeeze. Well, what did Woodley do? He just squeezed. That's it, he squeezed. He didn't grab the chin strap. He just reached his arm all the way through, way too deep, connected his hands, went to his back, and squeezed as hard as he could. This doesn't put any pressure on the blood. You see, the left side of Thompson's neck, where Woodley is reaching under his arm, there's absolutely zero pressure being put there. That's why just squeezing doesn't work. His arm's in the way. You need to grab the chin strap and turn the blade of your hand into his throat. That's what creates the pressure. Example number 2, definitely the most famous guillotine attempt in UFC history, Dustin Poirier on Khabib. Right off the bat, this guillotine was a lot tighter than Woodley's, but a lot of the same mistakes are there. So Dustin jumps guillotine, and as soon as he hits the canvas, you can see here from this angle, the blade of his hand is directly on Khabib's throat. This is the perfect position for the arm-in guillotine. But as Khabib squares up with him, you can see directly under his right shoulder, that's Dustin's glove. He reached too deep and is now using his forearm to choke, which is significantly not as tight. Khabib definitely still feels it though. You see here, Khabib puts his head straight down into the mat, which visually looks like his arm is now right on his throat, but this actually takes a bit of the pressure off the choke. Khabib turns to his side to take some pressure off and try to escape. Now as he comes back up, Dustin is now way too deep. With how far his arm's in, it's now the soft part of Dustin's forearm that's doing the choking. And look, it is still choking, but it's not going to put him to sleep. Khabib turns to his side again, loosening it up even more, and then eventually gets his head out. As many of you know, I've mentioned before that I always thought it was funny that everybody thought Dustin was some crazy Jiu Jitsu guy when he fought Khabib, and I never knew where it came from until now, looking at some YouTube videos of this choke. Everyone in the comments is like, man, Dustin's guillotine was so tight. I can't believe he got out of it. It's so crazy. And I'm learning more and more every day how much Joe Rogan influences all this stuff, because I swear to God, it just comes from his fight companion where they were all freaking out about how tight it was. And look, it wasn't like it was a terrible attempt. Guillotining Khabib Nurmagomedov is not an easy task. Dustin definitely threatened with it. It just could have been a lot tighter with some tweaks. Now, Tyron Woodley's attempt, yeah, that wasn't good and that wasn't close. This was definitely closer. Now, let's look at an example of a rock-solid guillotine. Colby Covington's first loss against Warlley Alves. Now, this guy is known for his guillotine. It is his best submission. Colby shoots the takedown. Alves grabs Colby's neck and then jumps guillotine. And you're going to see it right here from this angle. Look at his hand placement. You see the red tape right under Colby's neck. He's not using his forearm, he's using the blade of his wrist. When you have it like that, it comes on so fast and it is so tight. You see though, in MMA, it's a lot harder to get that perfect positioning because of how much bigger and bulkier the glove is. That's why Dustin was reaching a bit farther than he had to, because it's just a little bit tougher to really cinch it up. Now, as far as Tyron Woodley goes, I just don't think he knows how to do a proper guillotine. And that's another issue a lot of MMA fighters have. They're just not as well versed in the small mechanics it takes to really finish a submission. Because a lot of times in the practice room, you get a big buff guy like Tyron squeezing on your neck. All these guys are tapping. In a UFC title fight, though, you can't do it that way. In conclusion, it's not that the guillotine doesn't work. It's that the mechanics to finish the arm-in guillotine are very precise. Most people, they just grab it and squeeze, but that doesn't work. And most people don't drop to guard with a no arm-in guillotine because it's harder to control. But when they do, there is a much higher rate of finishing that submission. As many of you know, the guillotine is the second most finished sub in the UFC due to the fact that there are a lot of takedown attempts where people put their necks in danger, so the amount of attempts is very high. So the next time you hear someone say the guillotine doesn't work or don't jump to guillotine, I'd tell them, well, how about you actually work on your guillotines?